Jeffrey Scott here. Our guest today is John Munie. You're going to really enjoy this. He's the founder of Focal Point, a 27-year-old company, 55 million. And of course, he started off small like everyone else here. And you'll really learn from him, no matter your size, on how to take those steps to grow. He has 625 employees, 7 branches, St. Louis, Kansas City, Oklahoma City, Southwest Missouri, 75% maintenance, 18% install, plus snow, etc. And there's 2 owners now. He started off with 1. You're going to learn how he brought on that second owner. He says he's responsible for the soul of the company, and he focuses on the experience that the different stakeholders, clients, employees, etc., have with this company. I think that's an interesting way to define your job. I asked him what he does uniquely well. He says he connects emotionally with the stakeholders. He builds trust, and he's able to scale without sacrificing quality, culture, or profitability. So keep that in mind, right? Emotionally connect with stakeholders. He focuses on the why, not the what of they do or not the how of what they do, but he focuses on the why. That's his mantra, and that's helped him build the business. So I think that's a lesson anybody can really take on for themselves right now. Do they constantly drive the why? I think we can all get better at that. Some lessons he's learned along the way, I'm going to share with you now, is that he needs a strong balance sheet, or that you need a strong balance sheet if you're going to grow the business, including with acquisitions. And to do that, you've got to have strong, consistent profits above a certain level. And in order to do that, you've got to properly price and have someone and a culture in charge of disciplined execution. So you've got to have all these fundamentals in place. If you want to grow your business to be strong like the people we have on our podcast, think about joining our Leaders Edge peer group for landscape business owners. We take on companies running owners running small businesses, starting at $1 million or $2 million, and running much larger businesses, right? Add another 0 to that, not just 8-figure. Let's see, not just 7-figure, but 8-figure landscape companies. With no further ado, let's jump right in and let's learn about John Munie and his journey and what you can copy and learn from him. John Munie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeffrey Scott.
Introduce yourself, please, to the audience.
John Munie, founder, and I prefer president. Some want to say CEO, but I prefer president of Focal Point, based out of St. Louis area. And we operate St. Louis, Southwest Missouri, Kansas City, and Oklahoma City. Mostly commercial maintenance. Growing, doing well.
So you have 7 branches, and 625 employees in total. It seems that your branches are pretty large. Am I reading that right?
Yeah. So we have we call it a branch, meaning we have 2 branches running out of Caseyville. One is our construction department, and the other is the landscape maintenance we do out of this branch or this facility. And then, we have our largest is probably touching 13 million, maybe. Another one's around 11, 8. Construction 10, maintenance 8. Between our smallest would be Southwest Missouri, and that's probably, around 4. Yeah.
Because some people, I've heard that 4, 5, 6 is the ideal size. Is that not true, or not true for you?
What makes them say that?
It's just something I've heard. I know plenty of companies that have much larger branches, but I was just speaking with TLC, and they're 23 million up in Ontario. I suppose, what makes them say that? that one person could put their hands around all the employees and clients and not get lost?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's why I asked the question, what's the limiting factor, right? And my sense of that would be leadership and culture, right? And how strong your team is below the leader, right? So, if you have, let's just hypothetical situation. Let's pretend you have within a large branch, you have 10 people that could be branch managers. That's a pretty easy job for the branch manager, right? Like all the number twos are like awesome, right?
Yeah.
So I think that would be the limiting factor, is that you start bumping into either your personal talent, right, as a branch manager, or you might be thin on who you have supporting you, or you don't have the support above you, right, to help eliminate some of those frustrations of, it's essentially similar to business ownership, right? And if the quote unquote corporate part of it isn't making your life easy, I think that could be a limiting factor too. Yeah. So it'd probably be one of those three things, right? But, and then you just come down to logistics of the yard space. Out of Caseyville here, we're running, call it $17-18 million worth of revenue. And, it can be pretty busy.
So what I'm hearing you say is there isn't a standard, and you'll just take the constraints and try to remove them to grow the business.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. If you think about it, if you can have a branch in a high density area, why would you want another facility?
Yeah.
If anywhere they go, if they can, again, pretend they can do $25 million and drive 15 minutes max, do that. You don't need our branch manager, you don't need our facility, and, blah, blah, blah. That sounds like more work to me than just having a really good one branch.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot I want to ask you, and before we get carried away or carried down that road, can you tell us how you got started? Take us back to the beginning.
Yeah. So, grew up in family business like a lot of people, right? And really kind of developed a passion for business working in my dad's pool and spa company. We were, it's a seasonal business, understaffed. Saturday, I can remember like the stock boy running to McDonald's and coming back, and the value meal would sit on your desk till 4:15 when you closed at 4 and you got the customers out at 4:10, and you just didn't have time to eat. But the cash register had a certain rhythm to it, and there was something infectious about that energy. And I thought, man, I could really do this. I really enjoy solving problems, helping customers, motivating a team, and it was a small, let's be clear, like it was a very small retail pool and spa business. We sold above ground pools but it was exciting to me. Anyway, graduated from college and worked in the industry for a little bit and went out of the industry for a spell. And in 1998, December 18th, 1997, I incorporated. And first day on the property was March 23rd, 1998. And I had a very tired body at the end of the day. Did a spring cleanup. And anyway, sent out, it's kind of a longer story than what we want to get involved in of how I got talked into going into business, but it's kind of fun. Real quick. I was having a conversation with the then Bishop of Belleville, Catholic Bishop of Belleville, and he's now the Cardinal of Washington, D.C. And I was just kind of thinking about like what I want to do. And, we were in this conversation. He said, you need to go into business. He said, give me a price to mow my lawn. And so I gave him a price, and he called me, he said, you got the job. I said, Bishop, I don't even have a mower yet. Like I'm not sure I'm even doing this. He says, I got a mower, use mine. And so then I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing this. So I sent letters out, and that's how we got started. The first year did $45,000, made 10 grand. Like, fortunately, my wife was really knocking it down as a public school teacher. And but she did have health insurance, that was good. And then second year, again, $90,000. You start, right? And picked up some residential accounts in Missouri, one of which was a pitcher for the Cardinals at the time. And that led to us doing work for Mark Lamping, who was president of the Cardinals at the time. Yeah. And that was in 2000. And in 2005, we had an opportunity to work down at Busch Stadium for the Cardinals. And that worked out, and we've been down there since. So that's kind of cool. And once you pick up an account like that, which that's also a great story. Like Mark gave us an opportunity, and he didn't give it to us. He made us, like we met with the operations people, and we had to sell it on our own. But he certainly was an advocate for us based on the quality of work we did for him at his house. And those are moments when you look and say, man, like I probably wouldn't have done that if I were Mark. Like we were not a big established company to take on a contract like that. But he believed in me and gave us an opportunity by introducing us to the operations team, and we demonstrated to them that we could do the work around the stadium on the outside. And anyway, that led to picking up opportunities in the commercial market in 09, 10. We picked up the leading malls in St. Louis, and then 12 Edward Jones Corporate Campus and Enterprise, and WashU, and 17. It just kept growing.
And so you were residential and commercial initially?
Yeah, we're still in St. Louis. We still do some residential. I mean, we have some customers. They've been with us for 27 years. It's difficult, even though it's not our focus. They're great people. We gel with them so good, and it's just easy. So yeah, we maintain a residential presence in the St. Louis market, but it's certainly not our focus at this point. Yeah.
When I was growing up, we lived behind my uncle's big pool construction company, and he had a little retail shop storefront. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I can still remember the smells of walking in that shop. Kind of chemicals and plastic and chlorine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll probably die young from it, but yes, I can understand exactly what you're saying. I can imagine walking into the old pool store right now and telling you exactly, it's a combination of chlorine and cardboard, like something like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I looked on your website, and you built a pool for Whitey Herzog?
No, we didn't. We didn't build a pool for Whitey. We took care of his property for him, though. Whitey, I don't know how much time you want to spend on stories, but Cardinals have been a great partner for us. Just wonderful people. The front offices, they're just great, great people. And Dan Farrell, who's since retired from the Cardinals, kind of told me a white lie to do me a favor. He said, Whitey owes me a favor, and I'm going to have him come to one of your suite events. And this was back like in 07, maybe 08. And we were small, no money. I mean, just like cobbling together a suite event to try to get business in the door, like just stuff that you do. And I'm like, holy cow. I mean, I remember I was 10 when the Cardinals won the World Series in 82. Like everybody wanted to play baseball for Whitey Herzog, right? So Whitey comes to a suite event, and I don't know if people generally know about Whitey or not, but he is a character like Casey Stengel, Yogi Berra, funny. They don't make characters like that anymore funny, right? Yeah. So he does a suite event for us, and he and I do this question and answer thing. And he just hits it out of the park. I mean, people are absolutely howling. Like, it's so funny. And he never wanted to get stuck in traffic. So he, seventh inning, he's like, had a good time, John, got to go. So I said, Mr. Herzog, listen, I cannot afford to pay you what you get for making appearances like this. Even though he wasn't a Hall of Famer at the time, he was probably like a $10,000 deal or something like that. He says, oh, don't worry about it, John. Hey, I had a good time. And I said, but if there's anything you need at your yard or anything like that, let me know. I'm happy to help you. And, no, I'm fine. And then he stops. He goes, tell you what, I got a bare spot in my yard. And so you want to come take a look at it? So within a week, I went out and took a look at it. And it was a circle drive. The irrigation just wasn't in that spot. And it was September, it's still warm, dry. I tell him, hey, we'll overseed that, aerate the whole yard, and we'll take care of it. He says, sound good, John. Let's go inside, have a beer. So we go into his basement. We have, visit for like 4 hours, and we end up becoming really good friends. He taught me how to fish. I mean, we go out to lunch, and just another example of a guy that, a big person that gave a little person a chance, right? And we became very good friends.
And you hired him?
No, he would do suite events for us occasionally. And we would take care of his yard farm, but I mean, he never wanted money, just, two Southern Illinois guys. He was from a small town in Southern Illinois, New Athens. And, we just got along really, really great and became friends. So that's why I don't know what he says on our website, but we took care of his pool and his yard farm.
I grew up as a Red Sox fan. I hope that doesn't put us on the opposite sides here.
That's right.
We had to go through St. Louis to finally end the drought.
Whitey claims that if Ted Williams, apparently I don't know the history of it, but Whitey said that Ted Williams was an incredible fighter pilot because he had such good eyesight. And because he was a pilot, he missed a few years on and off as a player. And he said, had he not missed that time, he, in addition to being, having great batting average, he probably would have had a home run record. That would have been tough to beat. But he got, in the prime of his career, he got taken out to serve in the war.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. That's might be the extent of my Red Sox knowledge, honestly.
It's okay. So you have a business partner. Did you have that person all along?
No, just me for the first 25 years, and then we decided that we were going to expand throughout the Midwest, and I put together an advisory board June of 2022, and just like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I know how to run a landscape business, but I don't know how to make an acquisition or, that's just not how I'm set up. So we put together this advisory board, and it's a wonderful group of people.
Yeah.
And, anyway, put the board together and, started targeting, exploring the possibility of expansion, and, acquired a company in Kansas City in March, and then one locally here in St. Louis reached out to us, and that became a tuck-in in March as well. And then Brett Gordon with Signature in Oklahoma City. He and I were in a peer group together, and we started exploring this idea like in the fall. And there were things that he did that were just so good in running his business that we weren't doing. Like, he had put together a tracking system on productivity. Every 15 minutes, he could see his crews were ranked by who was most efficient.
Oh man, how did you do that?
And his screen would update, and so he could tell throughout the day who was falling behind. And hey, do you need support? What happened? How can I help you?
What technology did he use?
I don't know, and maybe I probably want to tell you anyway. And so, on the flip side, we consistently were a top performer on customer satisfaction surveys in the fall, and top workplace, just the human side of the business. And, we just admired how each other ran their business. And, anyway, we acquired Signature in May of 2023, and Brett became a partner. And he's our COO now. And it has been a wonderful, wonderful experience. Okay. Like Bruce said, he said it's one of those rare cases where 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah.
And that really has turned out to be the case for us.
So what size were you organically before you started buying?
Yeah, we were 25 million. Okay, let me see if I got these years right. Yeah, we were 25 million in 2022. And then, we did those acquisitions and we went to 38 million in 2023, along with our normal growth. And then 2024, we ended up right at about 55 million. And we did one more tuck-in acquisition in Kansas City. We acquired Messengers in Kansas City in July of last year, July 2024. So, and then, this year, we think organically will be about 70 million or so.
Do you have a philosophy on organic growth, minimum, max versus acquisition?
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like if we do our job well, we retain our customers really well. We're somewhere between 98 and 101% of revenue every year when you take into account price increases.
That's outer ordinary.
Yeah. So, again, that's just been our culture. I mean, we do a net promoter score. We had one branch this year hit 85 net promoter score, including our acquisitions. Some of which were distressed at different times, so the customers weren't thrilled. Company-wide, we're 73 on our net promoter score. So, that's kind of been our culture, right? So anyway, when you retain customers like that, you can't help but grow, right? And so, we believe that 15 to 20% organic growth is reasonable and doable if we're delighting our customers.
Just quick prediction, but as you get larger, do you think you can keep up that percentage growth?
Yeah, it depends, right? If you get into new markets and there's a need in that market, you would blow that out of the water, right? So I think it just depends. It depends. Now, can we continue growing 20% in St. Louis? Probably not, right? At some point, you're going to run out of real estate, or you're just going to start bumping into, prospects that may not care for you. You know what I mean? You just aren't aligned culturally, right? So I could see that being a little bit of a limiting factor, but, we've not seen, there's fairly strong demand for good service. If you think about it, go anywhere and it's really difficult to find good service.
Yeah.
And, if you provide that, it's become a bit of a surprise to people. And, it creates opportunities and a lot of referrals.
My experience is there's an S curve with any new product or business where it starts out great, it's doing awesome, best thing since sliced bread. And then at some point, it's almost like the management decides to milk whatever they've created. And then it goes downhill. And,
Well, do you mean as you expand into a new market, or do you mean just the business life cycle in general?
The business life cycle, it seems to me, we could buy something we loved 10 years ago and you'd get it now and it would be cheap. And, I'm even thinking about products. But if a new product came out that was quality oriented, it would probably be great. But then at some point, it just seems to me there's this natural milking of, obviously not all companies do this, but it just seems to be a trend. And I think it could be the same with the customer service given by an organization.
Well, that's kind of like Jim Collins, statement, good is the enemy to great, right? You can become complacent. You can read your headlines.
Yeah.
You can be tricked into thinking that you're good.
Yeah.
And, we just don't pay attention to our competitors. We respect them for sure, but how they go about their business and how we define our success, or how they define their success, is none of our business. We are aspiring to build a great service business, and And when we're looking at what that looks like, we're looking at Southwest Airlines, Chick-fil-A, Ritz-Carlton, like there's no reason why we cannot be in those conversations. And that's the standard that our people are used to hearing.
How do you ensure that you and your people don't breathe your own exhaust, read your own headlines? What does that look like?
Customer feedback, right? Every fall we have a third-party customer satisfaction survey go out, and our folks are their compensation's tied to that. So, if you're not going to ache for the customer's success and serve with humility and, take on their brand as if it's your own, you are not going to like working here. You're just not. And no one's confused on that. That's
in your company.
Right. That's just, everybody's got their thing, right? Some people take great pride in doing fast work and, being low price or, whatever, being a great hardscape business. Everybody's got their thing that they're passionate about and that defines their culture. And, ours is, we just have a natural desire to serve and delight.
Do you worry that the branch that's scoring 85% on the Net Promoter Score will get complacent?
I hope not. That would shock me. The branches all see each other's scores, and there's a friendly rivalry. Whether it's we have a branch scorecard, and whether it's safety, quality, profitability, growth. Nobody wants to be last. That's for sure, right? So, and not even that. I mean, I think you just got to make sure you have people who are wired in alignment with our culture, and can breathe that energy into their people. And I believe every one of our branch managers has that quality about them.
I read in the prep you gave me that if something like private equity looks at EBITDA, we look at everything else. And so I love that statement, by the way. Tell me what do you look at and how does that play out?
Yeah, I just don't. And again, I'll probably get made fun of big time by smart money people. And I understand, I know my limitations, but I just can't get my head around the idea that 1 or 2 years of EBITDA is a logical predictor of a company's potential.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to know how that works. So what my brain goes to is, can I have words that land on these people and that they look at me and say, I might want to follow this person and I might want to do amazing things with this company. Can you find a spirit within the organization that, good, honest, humble people that are comfortable with hard work and accountability and want to build something special? Give me that. I'll take zero EBITDA. I'll take negative EBITDA. I don't care. A lot of people didn't go in a landscape business to be wizards at spreadsheets and the P&L statement. They went into it because they love people and plants and they're really good at it. Give me those people. And we can build out, we can help them find success. I'd have to ask our branch managers, if things were different, would have you had a desire to have your own business? And it'd be a fascinating question, but my guess is the answer would be no, because we eliminate the aggravation of running your own business while letting you run your own business, if that makes sense, right?
Right.
We deal with the ticky-tack stuff so they can focus on delighting their customers and doing amazing work. So that, anyway, that's kind of what we look for. I just don't understand how EBITDA reflects potential.
I like that. EBITDA is based on, but when you're buying a company, you still look at that.
Yeah, I mean, we throw an eye on it. But what I really look at, we look at their equipment. What are your assets, right? What's your debt? Give me a listing of your employees. How long they work for you? What's the background of them? Do I think I can see the bones of building something here? And yeah, I mean, there's some degree of if the business is not churning a profit, it certainly affects its valuation, right? You got to start digging in and say, well, man, if everything's priced too low and we have to go in and we have to raise all the prices, you're going to lose some customers. There's some things that you can't be dumb about it, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a path for, a lot of business owners that may just be really frustrated with their business, but they've done some really good things, and we recognize those things.
So it's really as if you were going to hire a person. Would I want to hire? Do I want to buy that organization? Would I want to hire those same people to work at my company?
Yeah, or do they have some anchor accounts that we can build around? Right, that's the other piece. Particularly if you're going into a new market. Do they have a little bit of a foundation, and have they had those accounts for a period of time that we could count on some stability if we go into that, right? And I can remember for years, my standing joke is like, after 20 years I became an overnight success. I can remember for years taking very good care of the customers and having good accounts and not making very good money. That's probably the best way to put it. We're looking for the John Munies of the world, right? Like that, capable of having relationships, capable of doing good work, but just maybe they just don't have it all figured out quite yet, right? Or some of the pieces of running the business are just exhausting. And, we can help those folks. And in some cases, people might want to stay on. Some cases, people might want to do something different. Like, we understand all that. And we don't go into any situation saying, well, this is how it's going to go. This is what we need. I first want to understand what their goals are. It's an emotional deal. Why did you start this? And, how can I honor you and make sure that you're proud throughout this process? So that's, we just look at everything through a human lens.
If others listening want to do what you're doing, go out and purchase companies to help grow. You're giving some great advice, but let me just throw it out as a question. What advice would you give the listener who, after 20 years or what have you, or maybe it's 10 years now, they're like, I want to try that route of growing through acquisition? What would your advice be?
Man, surround yourself with an advisory board. That to me is that's the deal. People, you're going to go into something you're not familiar with. And unless you're, and I'm sure there's a lot of people smarter than me, but unless you have it figured out of how that works and what ratios you need to be at on your balance sheet and how you're going to finance the acquisitions. And, there's a lot of questions that have to be answered to be confident in what number you're going to provide and how you're going to finance it and all that kind of stuff. And, I think, after living through 2008 and 2009 and knowing how crushing debt can be to an organization, I freaking hate debt. I hate it.
Yeah.
And there's a realization that you need some debt, right, to grow and do what you want to do. And so I'm very conservative related to that. And, I look to the advisory board and say, all right, what's healthy? All right, that's healthy. All right, I'm going to do it for less. And it's just, you just need to surround yourself with good people that can help advise and guide and make sure you don't do something fatal. I think taking on something bigger than what you can swallow, that to me that's a really big fear for me.
So starting small.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Or know what you're getting. In the case of Brett Gordon, I knew Brett long enough to know that this is a quality company with a quality person. And, he was just the same guy every time I was around him. And he's the same guy almost 2 years later. He's exactly the same guy. There's no surprises, no mood swings, nothing where oh boy, I got to protect my branch managers against this guy. Like he's only made them better.
Yeah.
And, it's, if you get that right, it's a treat. It really is.
We run a second in command peer group and we help a lot of our clients with that. And I don't know if this is coincidence or not, but a great many seconds in command, I have found the owner, president, knew them before. So they had them vetted, for the long, they've known them over there was a long vetting period before they brought them in. Now it's not, I also have clients that have done a good hiring and they found somebody on the outside, but I don't know if that's a coincidence. You have any thoughts on that?
Hiring is hard, right? And we're in the process of building out the Focal Point way to hire and onboard. And just like, a lot of my energy now is going into the employee experience. We want this to be a destination company within a destination industry, not an industry people settle for. Yeah. And I believe we can do that. By getting this built out, I think will dramatically improve our odds of getting people that are inherently aligned with Focal Point. But, in the absence of a great hiring program, I think it really is a bit of a coin toss. And therefore, that long vetting period is very beneficial. You want to see how people behave when they're under pressure a little bit, right? And, just in different situations. And are they really going to step up when it's time to step up? Because that's what, you're talking about company leadership. You don't have the luxury of being like, yeah, I'm having a bad day. Like what? Yeah. It's not how it goes.
I've seen so many different scenarios. They hire in a second in command, but he's got to leave by 4 and, or doesn't get in till 9. Or people ask me, will that work if I hire someone? I think you
I mean, if that's your culture, it'll work.
Well,
I don't know that if the CEO and the COO and the CFO start at 9 and leave at 4, maybe they have something figured out. I don't, but you got to have pace horses, right? I mean, what are you aspiring to be? And if it's not exceptional, what fun is it?
Mm. Did you have a second in command before you partnered up?
We had a COO that was outside of the industry for a couple of years, and he retired before, right around the time Brett was coming on. And I don't know that it was, that's a lot to ask someone to really thrive and click when they've been out of the industry. There's a uniqueness to our industry. There's some challenges to it. And prior to that individual, I kind of had it split between construction and maintenance. And those guys were essentially my, if you want to call it COO of one department, COO of the other. And, then we had a controller and Lisa, my assistant / she kind of oversaw business administration. that was kind of our leadership team. And I don't know that I could really pin one as second in command. They were all available and ready to do whatever. But now that we built out like we have, that's clearly Brett.
I like your criteria though, right? Will they step up when the moment is there that they're needed?
It's an odd for us. It's kind of an odd combination of skills. Like if you think of the disc profile, you've got someone that's a high D, just a high driver, and then you got the I that's the, the personality person of the group, right? The class clown, so to speak, and steady and conscientious. And for us, like we're very relationship centric. And, like a lot of people say, oh, we have a great culture. We're like a family. Okay. What's that mean? Well, we all like each other. Okay. How do you hold each other accountable? That can be a struggle sometimes. That's so, we just believe that, if your purpose is to help people reach the best version of themselves and maximize their potential, which you hope you can do for people, right? Like we're here for a short time. Like, what are you getting out of your time? We owe it to them to hold them accountable. Like set a shared vision. What are you aspiring for? What are we aspiring for? Are we in alignment on that? Okay, great. And when we agree to something, if you don't hold up your end of the deal, we're going to have a conversation. And not just for the benefit of the organization, but for your benefit personally. And so I think for us, it's a little bit of rare, we don't yell, we don't throw things. Like that is, I can maybe count on one hand in 27 years I've raised my voice. It's just not who we are. But I also know that I owe it to our team members to say, hey, you missed the mark. And what's your plan to correct it? And, I think Brett fits that. He fits that perfectly. He cares about people a great deal, but he's also not confused on what performance looks like. It's a great fit.
Were you at Busch Stadium when you raised your voice?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. Everybody wants to work down Busch. Everybody does a nice job down there.
Yeah. So you look at beyond EBITDA when you're looking to bring on a company. Where do you see the industry going? I'm just sort of thinking out loud here, but where do you see the industry going in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Well, in a micro sense, it's definitely going to keep trending toward technology, right? Things are moving very fast on the technology front. And I think that things are going to look a lot different in terms of the internal and external tools that we have available for us.
Yeah.
So I think that's real. I also think that we have an opportunity to make people aware, and I said before, that this is a destination industry and a destination job. Back when you started in the industry and I started in the industry, $4 an hour for labor wasn't terribly uncommon. And, if you did well, you got bumped to $6, right? I remember making $3.35 an hour when I started.
Yeah.
There are very good paying jobs in the industry now. And I believe that, people are realizing the benefits that beautiful landscaping brings communities. And if we recognize that, there's a great opportunity for us to be viewed in the right lens. And, since day one, and I'm not taking anything away from people that have white trucks or green trucks or whatever, but we start with burgundy trucks from day one because I was insistent that we are not a landscape company. We are a life quality company. We were a residential company for the most part.
Yeah.
And I wanted a brand that aligned with their Mercedes, their wine collection, their country club membership. I did not want them looking out their window and saying, oh, those are landscapers. I want them looking out their window and saying, these people are adding to my life quality.
Yeah.
Which is why, we put the newspaper at the door and took the trash cans to the garage and straightened the chairs around the pool and all that kind of stuff. Right. And that's really no different than who we are now. I mean, we've been in full uniforms for 27 years. Collared shirt, button down, white khaki pants. I love what the Ritz-Carlton says about we're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And we hold our folks to that standard. And a lot of people don't like that and they don't work for us. And we're okay with that.
What do you mean?
But we're a branding company.
I'm sorry. Sorry for interrupting. What do you mean they don't like it?
Oh man, when we were tight on labor, hopefully that was a roundabout way of saying where I think the industry's going is a greater appreciation for professionalism and what we bring, what we bring communities. What I mean by they don't like it, I can remember in 2018 we didn't get our H2B guys, and we were really struggling. I mean, like really struggling. And we had to hire people that we knew didn't fit our culture, but we needed bodies. Mm. And we had a guy that said, "You're too effing picky." Didn't say effing. Storms out of the office, gets in his car, and I mean, like a scene from the Dukes of Hazzard. Like this guy could have been a moonshine driver, like drifting and rocks are flying. And I'm looking out my office window with some amusement. I mean, dust everywhere. And our uniform shirt goes flying out of the window. We're not for everybody. I understand that, right? That was a very clear example I have in my mind of a time when we were not not everybody likes that.
Nice use of the word drifting, by the way.
Thanks.
I have a good picture.
My kids taught me that. Yeah. Drifting.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't hear that a lot from commercial landscapers. That you really have a high touch, high service. I know I'm generalizing, right? I'm probably going to get emails now.
You have all sorts of fans you didn't know you had.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not like the first thing you hear. You really have this high touch, high service sensibility about you.
Yeah, and I think that probably, it's how my brain worked before, right? Like I said, when we start with burgundy trucks and just this mindset of life quality. But when you focus on that with your high touch residential customers, it became part of our DNA, and you can't extract that out. So you take that to the commercial market, it's still who we are. We're not all of a sudden going to say, "Oh, that's right. We don't delight our customers. We burn through the properties as fast as we can, and we bid this as cheap as we can. That's how we win." That's not how we win, and we understand that we're not a great fit for all customers.
Yeah.
Right? Like the customers that need that, we're not a great fit for. But our customers, they're very appreciative of our philosophy.
Clearly, you're sizable, where what you're doing really resonates with clients of all types. Yeah.
I mean, I think so. We talk about like trends and, like how are you going to adapt to all this, the way the industry is going. There are some things I think that never go out of style, and Focal Point doesn't need to adapt at all.
Yeah.
And, treating people with respect, communicating with them directly, doing what you say you're going to do, anticipate their needs and deliver on them before they realize they have them. Like, tell me how that's going to go, how we're going to like outgrow that.
Right.
That's not going to happen, right? There are going to be tools that you could use to maybe enhance that. But, you know, this idea like, oh, you know, AI is going to replace all that. Man, I don't know. I think there's a big part of people that are gonna crave authenticity and connectivity, especially when you talk about beautifying the world. Like, I just fail to believe that in an authentic industry like ours, that there won't be appreciation for some of like traditional great service concepts.
You could argue that the more high tech we become, the more demand for high touch will be required or will become.
Yeah, I mean, tech will make it easier for us to provide a higher level of service, right? And I think it's really going to thin out the people that get it and the people that don't. And I shouldn't say thin out. It'll separate. And again, not every customer values, you know, quality and service. You know, I mean, there are some customers that are going to say, hey, it's price. And if you communicate with me, great. If you do great work, great. Like, but I'm not confused. I need the lowest price.
Yeah.
You know, we haven't been a fit with that. Now, there are times where we actually are low price, but those are generally more on large, complex jobs that they're very clear on what the spec is. And it's a challenging spec. And that's who we are. So in those cases where we are low price. But yeah, I think for us, we're pretty clear on what resonates with our customers.
That's good. Sounds like you have a very lot of clarity internally. And I looked at your website. The values are all very clear. It's your website's very clear, by the way. Just
thanks. I'll pass that along.
Well, the communication is just very, very clear what you're trying to communicate. I really appreciate all your time here. Before we go, I just had a question, something you mentioned a little while back. You said Vern Harnish is on your advisory board. I had him, actually, he won't remember me, but I had him speak at one of my events once when he was living in Barcelona, I think. And
he's still in Barcelona.
Is he? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so he zoomed in, didn't charge me. And I was on one of his newsletters and we communicated, and he zoomed in and gave us a talk. And so he flies in for your events.
It's actually kind of a great story. He did a speaking event for us. We were in a peer group, and we hosted what we called the university, educational deal for our leadership of the folks in the peer group, different companies. And we had Vern come and speak. And afterwards, he and I were talking, and I said, I'm putting this advisory board together, and he'll cut me off right away. He said, I'm not accepting any more board positions. But he told me before, the reason why he was willing to come out and speak at our event at the price that we had was because his daughter was going to a local university here in St. Louis.
Okay.
And so I knew that. And I said, how would you like to be paid to visit your daughter?
Oh, clever.
He said, holy cow, it's a great sales pitch. You got a deal. So, it really created an opportunity for him to schedule visits for his daughter. And, he's in America a lot. I mean, yeah, he's international, but he spends a lot of time in the States too.
Yeah.
So it's, it works out. Does he miss some meetings? Yeah. But, he tends most of them for sure.
John, I appreciate you sharing and sharing your story and some advice and feedback. And I heard that you're starting up your own podcast.
Oh boy! Well, yeah, that's how I got this microphone, this headset so I do this morning message. Every morning I write an email to the team, and it's kind of gotten some legs outside of the Focal Point family. There's some folks that have asked to be added to it. And so that's kind of turned into, like a little bit of a following, right? And so our marketing team here was like, John, you have a lot to say, and we think you ought to do a podcast. And so, like today, that's how I got this microphone, this headset. I'm testing it out.
Yeah.
Bryce, our videographer, showed up and got my computer set up and all this stuff. So, I guess every month or so, I'm going to just talk about, running a business and balancing family and how people define success. And, hopefully it's interesting. I've gotten to know a ton of people over the years that have helped me out. And if there's a way for me to say, like, hey, this is some things that work for me and it works for others, then that's a win for me. So anyway, that's what we're doing. We'll see how it goes. I mean, if after a year I've got 3 listeners or something, we'll know it's probably not a great use of time, right? But we'll see. I don't know what to expect out of it, but I'm game for it, and we'll see how it goes.
I'll be one of the first to listen.
Yeah, great. I'll have Jeffrey, Scott, and my mother as my best fans. That's great.
Well, both of us eating popcorn. It'll be good.
That's right. Awesome.
Well, again, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it.